everybody. Okay, so this talk is mixed reality. Stranger things have happened, so if you're in the wrong room, please stay. And you can learn about mixed reality because guess what? You all got mixed reality headsets yesterday. Well, you will eventually get them. There's an email in June, but yay! So this talk is kind of talking about what is mixed reality and how we define it from Microsoft. So, a little about me. I'm Kat. Hi, Kat. I am part of the developer experience team at Microsoft. I'm a technical evangelist, and my expertise is in gaming and virtual reality, and of course, mixed reality now and augmented reality, all the realities, except the physical one, so, you know. On top of that, though, I also do stuff with bots. I do stuff with Azure and machine learning and anything with the cloud, a little bit of IoT, but my passion is in games, and so this is why I'm so excited to be here. So yay. Right, so Brandon was talking about this earlier, and he mentioned this in his slide, how we have these two realities. We have this digital reality and the physical reality. So the physical reality is everything we know, like our atoms, you know, this table, me, maybe, who knows, maybe I'm a hologram. And then we have the digital reality, which is anything artificial, things we created with Unity in these virtual worlds. And so mixed reality is the blending of the two. You can think about this since we have this great HoloLens demo in the booth. So if you all after this want to go and try it out, how many of you have tried the HoloLens? Wow, okay, so like everyone has already gone to the booth. So the Microsoft HoloLens headset is a really cool HMD because it allows you to blend your reality very easily. You can scan your physical world and bring it into a digital context and vice versa, where you have these digital objects that you've created and place them in the world with a one-to-one ratio, where 1 unit in Unity or 1 unit in the engine of the digital world is 1 unit in the physical one. And so we define mixed reality as a spectrum. On one side, again, the physical reality, and on the other, the digital reality. So there we go. The physical reality, we have AR on one side. So this is like your Pokemon Go, Euphoria, if you've stopped by their booth, has great technology for this. And then on the other end, today, VR is that digital reality. So when you put on your Vive, you're being transported to another world. And the cool thing about mixed reality is that you can kind of be placed anywhere along that spectrum. The holographic headsets, the see-through one, kind of leans more towards the augmented reality side, where you're kind of augmenting your physical space with these digital objects that you can place there and interact with. While the more immersive headsets, which will be the Acer ones that everyone will be receiving, are on the other end, where it's more immersive. It's more akin to the VR headsets that you're used to. But because of that, again, mixed reality, you have awareness of your environment, so it's a one-to-one ratio. So if I'm walking around with my immersive headset, if I walk 1 meter in that physical world, it translates to 1 meter in the digital one. And it's really cool because this specific headset has the inside-out tracking similar to the HoloLens. So you can just plug it into your computer and start developing. You don't need to set up lighthouses and make sure they don't fall down and like are secure and have this outside-in tracking. So that is one of the reasons why I think it's so cool. And then here's some numbers. Why do we care? Well, this growth has been amazing. It was talked at the keynote how we started from zero just like a couple of years ago, and now it's just exploding with the amount of headsets and technology. And what's really cool is that we've never been in this opportunity where hardware is so cheap that we can now iterate on these processes and have a bunch of competition and new headsets and try different things. 3D printing has made it really easy to iterate over different types of designs that we have for hardware. And as well, we have developers. We've never had this many developers before that are so good at what they do, and it's so easy to start developing and using these technologies that all of a sudden we have all of these resources culminating to this one point. And so by 2020, the IDC predicted a 7x growth, and so I find that incredible. So currently these are the two headsets. Again, there you go. So again, you have this holographic headset, untethered, completely its own device. So it has a CPU, a GPU, and also has a holographic processing unit. And again, this is for the HoloLens. This is a nice little spinny picture right there. And what's cool about it is the transparent lenses and spatial sound. So it still grounds you in that virtual world that you may have created. That way you can still hear the virtual objects that you might not be able to see. So if there's an object behind you, it sounds like it's behind you. If it starts to move above you, you can then hear it moving above you and then direct your attention there. And so designing for these applications, it's really important to know what context you're going to be creating. Or is it going to be a more immersive experience? Do you want it to be aimed for more mixed reality headsets or more of the unoccluded headsets? So again, this is the new immersive ones, works right out of the box. If you look at the one that we have on display downstairs, you can see it's just like a USB and an HDMI, and you just plug it in. And these are the ones that allow you more freedom because you can just start walking. You don't need to be in a 10 by 10 square or wherever you can put your lighthouses because it has inside-out tracking. The only, I guess, restriction is that tether, but we're iterating all the time, so. The other awesome thing about mixed reality is that it can be used anywhere. A lot of people have just been creating stuff for games and thinking that it's just for games. Oh, I don't want to do VR, isn't that just for game developers? And no, it's not. But game developers were the first ones to jump on this technology and use it because they already had the huge gaming rigs that could power the technology. And we're slowly getting to a point where the hardware to power all of those things is much cheaper. So an average family can now afford it instead of buying like a huge gaming rig. It doesn't cost it can cost thousands of dollars, but it's going down. And so what's cool is that with creation and design, you can use these headsets. You can either do it in an immersive way where I want to design what this auditorium will look like, so I can just fill it with virtual objects. I can figure out how I want to display everything in the physical world. Or you can have a more immersive one where we don't know what the room is going to look like. We can create it ourselves on the fly. And so it allows you to have all this design freedom that we didn't have before. Same thing with assembly and manufacturing. There was a great example of this 3 weeks ago now, with a knitting company. And it was a factory where this worker just placed on the HoloLens, and it was a proof of concept of being able to go through the manufacturing process, and instead of having a tablet or piece of paper where they would check things off, they would just put on the headset and see exactly what they needed to do, which items they needed to grab, and then put them on the cart. So they're going through the factory, they're like, okay, these are the pieces that I need for this assembly process. Let me grab them, because I'm no longer holding a clipboard or like a tablet that can break and drop. So they were able to actually look at the objects and say, oh, I need 5 objects from this. And the headset knew how many objects they could pick up. And I think they also tied it with Vuforia in the example. And it was incredible to see because the headset also knew where the bins were for all of the tools. So then it could direct the user to specific bins. So now all of a sudden, instead of looking like, okay, which bin do I have to go to and going back and forth, it was, I'm just walking, oh, I need to go here. I need 4, cool, pick them up, put them in the cart. Where's the next place I need to go? And it's like, oh, okay, this one, how many do I need? 3, put them in the cart. And then just kept going, did one side, and saved a bunch of time. And so innovation is happening in all of these industries. We just need to be able to design and think outside of the box of our realities. And again, training and development, there have been a bunch of cool demos that I've seen with training processes for doctors. So the medical industry can save a bunch of time. People in aerospace industries or anything in manufacturing where you have these huge models or huge pieces of machinery that you can't just fly to people, so you end up having the cost of flying everyone to the factory, training them there, paying their T&E and hotel costs and everything for maybe just only a week, and then that's it. They only had hands-on training for that 1 week. With the HoloLens now, you can bring the life-size factory piece, set it in, I don't know, a large auditorium like this, and have everyone be trained on it and actually see the individual pieces. We saw it with NASA when they were on stage, JPL in their example, which was amazing, where they had the full Mars rover in each individual piece. So now you can know what the piece looks like and have experience working with it immediately, or like right here. And so it's like, oh, I'm getting a sensor that this rover on Mars, this piece is broken. Well, now I have an exact replica that I can just put in my living room and say, oh, okay, that's a piece, like, can do edits, fix it, and get all that information in a very streamlined process. I could go on, so I'm just gonna go to the next slide. So again, what makes us different? Mixed reality is really a blending of the realities. So it's not new, it's just trying to combine everything. So we have this freedom of movement with the HoloLens. It's untethered, it's a mobile device. It's a computer, you just put it on your head. And a lot of people are like, oh, but I have to plug it in. And I'm like, no, you have the freedom to go and use it wherever you want. And that's incredible. It's like your phone, but so much more powerful. You can understand your environment. The single consistent user interface, which is the other thing that I love about it. So we're trying to create this one Microsoft, one experience where developers and users are familiar with the environment. So if I'm on my PC and I hit the Windows key, the start menu pops up. Well, if I'm in my HoloLens and I bloom, a start menu pops up. And the same thing with the new immersive headsets. You have that same start menu, which you can kind of see with Cortana. And what's cool about these universal Windows platform applications is that they're cross-platform for Microsoft. So you have anything that runs a Windows, or is running Windows 10 can run UWPs. And so you have Skype on your PC, Skype on your HoloLens, Skype on your immersive headset. And that also has that one SDK for many developers. It makes it easier for us to then write the core process of my application and then put a holographic API on it. Or if I'm working in Unity, create this really cool, immersive experience, have that really nice physics engine, add everything into an environment that I know, and just export it as a UWP, or build it as a UWP. Oh. There we go. And again, this is the one platform with many devices. As I was saying, anything that runs Windows 10, you can see the list is going on and on. You have your Windows phones, yay, your PCs, your desktops. See, there it goes, yeah. I was like, do we remember what those are? Yeah. Your Xbox as well is included. And then you have the huge, has anyone played with the like 800 pixel, like we used to call it the PPI thing? It's like, no, okay, never mind. It's really big. Yeah, the Surface Hub. Yeah, no? Yeah, yeah. Some people know it by the old name, some people know it by the new name. And that's included as well. So you have this plethora of experiences and interfaces that users can now interact with their back-end code being pretty much the same. And again, all the middleware and tools are the same with a bunch of game engines and stuff. Oh. Cool, so as a developer, I wanted to talk about my experience in designing these applications. There's this really fun show. I'm not going to say the name of it, but if you're familiar, it's about these kids who play D&D and have this monster come out and try and eat them. So in the show, And there's this one scene that I wanted to create in HoloLens because I thought it would be really cool. And so in this experience, it's my alphabet board, and I place it on my wall in my living room, in this case, just in a regular office building, and you can write a message. So with HoloLens, you have this great ability of meshing your environment. You can kind of see it. I don't know if this one has a laser pointer. Yeah. So you can kind of see how it's pushing that mesh onto the wall, and it's covering the couch. So I'm mapping out my environment, spatial mesh that shows up. You can see the table. And I'm like, okay, I want to pin that to the wall, look around, see how it's not following my gaze anymore. And now I'm going to write a message. And to write a message, I just look at a letter and I tap. So I'm going to write hi in this example. So H-I, very simple to spell, very short, really good for demos. And then I tap the phone to play the message back. And so, oh, I accidentally clicked it in. So it says H-I, and then it spells R-U-N. And it's like, oh, what does that spell? I don't know. It spells run, just in case just people were ready. So after that, it plays, so I don't have the sound on this, but it plays a like very violent growl behind you, and it's supposed to be the Demogorgon. So you turn around, and again, this is spatial sound, so it sounds like it's behind you. You know that you have to look behind you. So you're like, oh, there's nothing there. That's just an alien that's on the wall. It's not actually the monster. So you're like, I don't know what's happening or where it is. I don't see anything. And so as soon as you look back, it triggers an event for the monster to pop out of the wall and eat you. So, very scary, very just heart-pounding, like thrills. It was great, really fun and easy. So then I was like, cool, how do I make this a more immersive experience? Let's see how easy it is to port over. Well, it was actually really easy until I realized a few things. The first thing I realized, if you look around your environment, we have all these cool, interesting things. I have this table, I have a mouse right here. It's all just very interesting to look at because they just have so much data. In immersive experiences, I ported everything over, and I had a panel of letters and a phone, and that was it. And I was like, oh, right, an environment. I need to create these things. So went on the Unity asset store, got me a couple assets, and filled my little room. So you see I have nice wallpaper-ish and a couch. So that actually took the longest time because now I have to create the environment that I no longer have in my physical world. So design consideration that we need to take from moving from a more on the mixed reality spectrum of see-through and AR to VR. These are what we might need to consider. And again, I spell out H-I and tap the phone. And so I was like tapping, okay, I can't air tap anymore. I'm in an immersive headset, it's not tracking my hand. So what do I do? Well, it's great in Unity, because Unity has a bunch of mappings that you can do for inputs. And so I just took my Xbox controller and I was like, okay, A will then trigger the same event as my tap event. So every time I hit A, I am air tapping and just calling that part of the code that saves what letter I selected to play it back to me. So hitting A on my controller, hit the phone. Oh, and of course I don't look up for this part of the video, but it plays back H and I, and then R, U, N. And again, you hear the, and you're like, oh my gosh, what's that behind me? There's no door. That's the scariest part of it. You're trapped in a room with no one out. And then there's a monster. But at that point, you're like, oh, it's just a monster. It's not actually attacking me. I'm still trapped in a room with no door. So remember, when you're creating environments, put a door there. Just, you know, every time I watch that video, I'm just like, what was I thinking? I don't know. I have no idea. So again, development considerations, design considerations, environment. You need an environment if you're going from one to another. And what's cool if you're going from VR to, or what's not cool, but what's interesting is if you're going from the more VR spectrum to the more AR spectrum, you might not want all that environment. You might want to take away some of your walls, You maybe want the floor to stay, or you want to overlay only parts of it. There's an experience on the HoloLens called Fragments, where it places a virtual environment on top of your own. And that's what's really cool about the HoloLens. You can kind of create a new experience or a new world within your own living room that just looks like it's always been there. Inputs. So again, Xbox controller was great. Mapping the inputs was really cool too, but now all of a sudden, if you're in Vive and you have a bunch of like grab controls and certain stuff with the dial for like tilt brush, you might not have that functionality. You might want to have to map it to a Xbox controller to then work with the untethered HoloLens. And then movement was another thing that I had to implement. So with the HoloLens, it's free form. I can move wherever I want. I have no boundaries. Well, with a Vive, you have your little box. So I was like, okay, well, I can't go anywhere I want anymore. How do I create this experience now? And figuring out movement is also important. The other thing when going from VR, the VR portion of the spectrum to the more AR mixed reality of the spectrum is optimization. The HoloLens is a mobile device. So running a bunch of particle effects and trying to get these huge explosions that are taking up a bunch of stuff, and normally you have, you know, your gaming PC that can run it fairly well at 90 frames per second. Yeah, if you're not gonna do that for a phone, try and optimize it like you were developing a game for a phone. It's interesting, so you might wanna change your shaders to something more optimized. This is where you take in consideration like how many times you're rendering to the screen. So these are the FYIs of development. And again, the input diversity was the part where, for movement and just inputs in general, that was the hardest one. So in holographic, which is the HoloLens, you have gaze, gesture, and voice. And with immersive, you have some of these as well. You have gaze, you have gamepads and keyboards instead of gesture, and then you have voice. What's really cool is like there's a Windows speech library that I use. It's really cool and fun. And it uses the phrase recognition stuff with the HoloLens, and it's really cool because then you can just say phrases to trigger certain events. Awesome. And so the call to action, start building today. These are a list of resources. And on top of this, we are taking this great approach of being more open with our developers and doing open source. So if you go onto GitHub, we have a repo in there, which is the Holo Toolkit. So on top of learning how to develop for HoloLens, it's open source, so anyone can develop for the toolkit. If you see a bug, if you have a problem, you can submit a pull request and fix it. If you have this really cool thing that you've created, like, oh, I found a great way to, from a simple mesh to create a whole new world, or do simple mathematics to figure out circular placement, because right now it's like, okay, we can detect flat surfaces along meshes and then put a plane on top of it so it's easier for developers to work with instead of the full mesh in Unity. That is one of the scripts in there. But if you had a script that was like, oh, I don't want flat surfaces, I want surfaces that are specifically for speakers because I want to do an application that helps people present better or something. So I need to know like the size of speakers and the size of tables and augment that. The world is your oyster. I don't have other examples, but, and then this is the other links where it's like, you can start, everyone here is getting one, but for your friends and everyone who will watch this in the future, I don't know if that link will still work, but aka.ms I want MR is how you can order your headset if you are not an attendee here. And also, if you just want more information about mixed reality, you can just sign up there and you will get a bunch of emails about what we're doing, all the announcements. And what's really cool is in a week at Build, the Microsoft conference, that is where we will be announcing a lot more information. And so if you do have questions, you can always come to me at the booth afterwards or after this talk, and we can talk about it, because I love that. But I might not be able to answer all your questions yet, so in a week, I will be able to answer much more of your questions. And of course, you can always get a HoloLens now. It's $3,000. Anybody can get them if you have $3,000 lying around. So thank you very much. It was my pleasure to talk to you all today. Here's all my information. Yay, Unity.